Hey guys, I've been racking my head for the last couple months about what to do when there's a passing of a celebrity. Now, for as many comments as I get where people are telling me not to make these types of videos, there are just as many people requesting that these videos be made as soon as possible. Now, for me personally, all I ever wanted to be was a host or presenter. So when I created this channel and subsequently the Before They Were Famous series, well, the main focus, it's always been to make informative biography videos on various celebrities. Most of the time we make fun, lighthearted videos made to entertain our audience while hopefully telling them something they hadn't heard before, but we've learned through past mistakes that under more serious circumstances it becomes our responsibility as a growing platform to tell the story in a much more respectful light while delivering the bigger message. Now, on Sunday, March 31st, Grammy-nominated rapper Nipsey Hussle, he was gunned down and killed outside of his clothing store. He was 33 years old. But Nipsey Hussle, he was much more than just a rapper. He was a philanthropist, actively involved in reducing gang violence in his community by consistently calling into question the high murder and incarceration rates, as well as being a symbol of hope and success for those who came from similar circumstances. Now, he also helped start an art initiative in his neighborhood called Destination Crenshaw, which will be a 1.3-mile-long outdoor art experience celebrating Black culture in Los Angeles. In short, Nipsey Hussle will use his platform to inspire others to better themselves, which is why news of his death to gun violence is devastating to so many. Now, it hasn't been a full year since the passing of X, who died under similar circumstances, and something tells me it probably won't be the last. Now, there are thousands of gun-related deaths in the US each year, so tragedies like Nipsey Hussle and X, they only serve to highlight the issues and encourage solutions to the problem. And, well, they're not meant to cast a shadow over the countless victims of gun violence that don't have the same media exposure. This is why it's so important for me to deliver this story responsibly. This video is not about taking a stance regarding gun violence, nor will it focus on the controversies that may have surrounded his name. It's about following Nipsey Hussle's lead and turning this platform into something more positive. With that being said, we will not be monetizing or running any ads on this video. We are only looking to share the legacy that this great rapper is leaving behind. We hope you see this video how it was intended to be, which is a tribute and a celebration of his life. Thanks.
We look at life like it's about what you can get from life. And I think, I read something, I was like, that's not what it is. You're going to always be unfulfilled if you look at life like that. It's about knowing you're going to leave one day. And, when you leave, the only way you're going to be fulfilled is if you know you gave everything you had.
Nipsey Hussle was born Ermias Asghedom in Los Angeles, California on August 15th, 1985. Now, he found out a few years ago that his birth name, it means God will rise. He cites Crenshaw and Slauson as the place that raised him, also known as Rollin' 60s. His mom was born and raised in LA, while his father is of Eritrean descent. Now, his parents, they split when Nipsey was as young as 3 or 4 years old, so he grew up with his brother and was raised by their mother, uncle, and grandmother.
What I like to say all the time when they ask questions of that nature, I just be like, I grew up better than some, worse than others.
In 2004, Nipsey traveled to Africa and Europe with his brother and father for 3 months to explore his family's roots. Now, his father was born in East Africa, so it was there that Nipsey met his grandmother and cousins for the first time. Now, he says the trip really gave him a better understanding of where he comes from. He told Complex, "I was raised in our household in my formative years, but as I got older, my pops tried to keep me involved with the culture by telling me the stories of the conflicts between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and how he came to America and about our family back home." Nipsey was always interested in music, listening to the radio, CDs, and buying Source magazines. When he first started rapping, he would listen to a Snoop or Dre album and fill in different words over their beats. By the time he was 12, he was already searching for original beats. At 13, his mom found out about a program at the Watts Towers in LA where they gave kids free studio time, which helped him record his own project later on. Now, Nipsey, he took his stage name from the comedian and actor Nipsey Hussle.
You've seen those pictures of the tribesmen? They have the bone in the nose that looks like this?
I've seen something even more savage than a man with a bone in his nose.
What's that?
I've seen a woman with rings in her ears.
His mom would pay their bills, but Nipsey, he needed to find his own way to provide himself with new kicks and nice clothes. So when he was around the age of 14, he started to hustle full-time. Now, in middle school, he played basketball a little bit, but his grades weren't good enough for him to pursue this sport any further. In a 2010 interview with Parlay Mag, well, Nipsey said that his mom, she got remarried, but he wasn't very fond of his new stepfather, so when he was 14 years old, he was out on his own. He stated, "I moved with Granny for a little bit, then on my own for real. By 15, 16, I started getting into the gangbanging and street life. But my mom's always stressed school and education. She put me onto prison, and just being a black man in America, being in the streets at a young age, LA is a real place. I was exposed to everything: killing, dope selling, police, jail shit, politics in the hood. I had a front row seat to it all. By 15, he became a member of the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips and claims to have made hundreds of thousands of dollars from hustling before ever making a dollar from music.
Yeah, basically before my deal and before I really had an outlet to get my music out, I was just full-time hustling and part-time rapping. Like I always had a passion for rap music, and I was always trying to create the situation to where I could do this full-time.
But around that same age, Nipsey, he was kicked out of Alexander Hamilton High School for an alleged robbery of the school's computer lab. Now Nipsey, he told Complex that he didn't do it, but he was still forced to attend a boot camp program through the Lenox Sheriff Department for juveniles. After getting kicked out of school and attending that program, he still wanted to get an education, so at 15 years old, he took classes at community college in West LA, where he enjoyed studying English, psychology, and philosophy, all things that translated into his music. He was getting A's and B's in college when he was still of high school age. Even my English teacher got at me and was like, "Are you plagiarizing this shit? You're 15 and quoting Plato in your essays? What's going on?" And I was like, nah, I'm just into it. Eventually, he dropped out of community college to pursue music full-time. Now, his goal with music was to give an update on LA for people who only understood what was going on in the city when Pac and Snoop were coming up. But once he realized that the lifestyle he was living was only going to end in one of a few ways, he got out of the game and started saving his money to work on music. He sold all of his cars, all of his jewelry, and really invested in his craft. He bought Pro Tools, an Apple computer, and studio equipment so that he could really focus on creating freely at a high level. Now, at the same time, he was trying to only spend $20 a day to save the rest for his music. So that left him with $10 for some weed and $10 for something to eat. Nipsey dropped his first mixtape, Slauson Boy Volume 1 in 2005, which would later become the name of his own record label. Now, once he established Slauson Boys Records, he negotiated a distribution deal for himself, being only 18 years old. Now, clearly Nipsey, he showed signs of being a successful entrepreneur from a very early age.
He actually bought us out. The independent deal we had, cause we had an independent deal with a company called Sailfish, and what they like the #1 online digital content distributor.
In 2007, he also played a small role in Bone Thugs and Harmony's I Tried short film.
I've been busy, dog.
Busy. Too busy to pay my sister some respect, though.
Nipsey would continue to hustle, but now selling his mixtapes out of the trunk of his car and do all of his own street marketing.
Cause we didn't damn near did it on every angle. We was independent. We printed up a CD on our own, street money out the trunk, printed up posters, put the posters up ourselves, all in the wrong hoods, hopping out late night, stapling posters on the corners.
His acting career continued, appearing in the movie The Wrath of Cain with Ving Rhames in 2010.
How you been, son?
Man, don't son me. What's happening?
Now, Ving, he actually heard Nipsey's mixtape through his stepdaughter's iPod. She only had Lil Wayne and Nipsey music at the time, and he took a listen while on a flight to South Africa. It was around this time that his name started bubbling up all over Los Angeles, and word of his movement made it all the way to the jailhouse, where a guy named Big U was serving a 25-year sentence. Now, Big U, he used to manage Corrupt and was plugged in with Snoop. He heard Nipsey's music, and after only serving 13 years of his sentence, he got out and started to manage Nipsey. They took his music to all the major labels together, but he told Complex after liking the music, labels would always get a call that said, "Yeah, them is the 60s, that's Big U, that's another Suge, don't do it." And I can imagine with Suge's rep, that wasn't something most people wanted to deal with. Now, Hustle, he also spent some time in county jail for a couple of months in LA after they raided his clothing store that he had started to sell his signature Crenshaw merchandise out of. Now, he said since there would be about 50 dudes out front, the police were suspicious of the activity going on in the parking lot. Nipsey would put all of his money into his studio to make it the top grade. On November 17, 2006, the police, they also raided his studio based on an investigation into his brother, and the studio, it had about 100 to 200,000 grand worth of equipment in there at the time. Following the raid, he was back to ground zero and felt like he had nothing. But shortly after getting out of county jail, he signed a deal with Cinematic Music Group through Sony and Epic Records. John Shapiro from Epic heard about Nipsey after DJ Felly Fell told him that Nip was the next big artist from the West Coast. The deal was through Cinematic Music Group, a label that Nipsey was actually the first ever artist on. He spent his advanced money on a lawyer and went to Jamaica for a week since he couldn't do much in LA.
I started off on the run. I signed my deal on the run, went to Jamaica, came back to LA, went to jail, got out, and then went to New York and started what's going on right now.
In 2008, Nipsey dropped 2 mixtapes, Bullets Ain't Got No Name, Volumes 1 and 2, and the second tape actually featured a beat from Kanye West for the song All for the Dough. Now his debut major label single was called Hustle in the House. The single started getting play on LA radio, but Nipsey said that there was also a lot of people complaining that it was promoting gang culture, so some stations slowed down on the spins. Now right after So Far Gone was released, well, Nipsey was featured on Drake's song Killers. You can even find an old tweet where Drake says, Nipsey Hussle is the hardest out. The two reunited years later for Meek's Going Bad music video. He was also featured on Snoop Dogg's album Malice in Wonderland on the song Upside Down along with fellow LA native Problem. Now at first many people thought that Nipsey was Snoop's cousin or nephew because of their similar sound, speech and looks. Well, Snoop, he even wanted Nipsey to play him in Straight Outta Compton, but Hussle, he declined because he wanted to pave his own path. On the Snoop feature, he told Complex in a 2010 interview, Snoop didn't ask me to sign to him, asked for no percentage, asked for no cut, and he more or less just took his visibility and his celebrity and co-signed and spoke real highly of me as opposed to being like, oh, this young dude. They always talking about he reminds them of me. So I respect Snoop even aside from the music, just as a man. The Game was also someone to give him an early cosign on Power 106 Radio and even taking him on his LAX World Tour. Then Nipsey was also featured on the 2010 version of We Are the World for Haiti, which also featured a young Justin Bieber giving his vocals to lead off the song. Now the same year he was also selected to be a part of the annual XXL freshman class alongside artists like J. Cole and Wiz Khalifa. He was planning on releasing his debut studio album under the label in 2010, but later that year Nipsey and his label parted ways due to creative differences, and he founded his own label, All Money In. He released his first project after becoming newly independent called The Marathon, and he followed that up with The Marathon Continues. Although it was rumored that he would sign to Rick Ross's Maybach Music, he never ended up inking an official deal and continued to move independently.
I just had a concern with my team getting credit for breaking Nipsey Hussle. So I didn't necessarily want to take that from my team.
Nipsey told fans that the third installment of his marathon series would be called the Marathon 3 Victory Lap, but if you know the rest of the story, the album didn't drop quite right away. In 2013, he said that Victory Lap would be his debut album, but instead his next release would be a mixtape titled Crenshaw. The project would be sold as physical copies and bundles that included autographs, a ticket to a private concert, merch, and meet and greets for $100 a piece, and only 1,000 total copies being released. The campaign was called Proud to Pay and was marketed as supporting independent artists that rap fans truly believed in. And well, he had a fan in Hove, because Jay-Z, he bought 100 copies of the album. And if I'm doing my math correctly, well then from Jay-Z's purchases alone, Nip, he made himself a cool 10,000 K. And he also made $100,000 by selling all 1,000 copies, one of which, well, it was scooped up by a lady named Lauren London. But we'll get into that a little bit later in this story. Now he used the money to fund his All Money In label, staying true to his name, and he told Kareem Seville that the title Crenshaw, well, it was one word that could represent who I am. It's a foundation to who I am. It's a foundation to my personality and my story. It's where it took place at. In 2016, he founded the Marathon Agency along with business partners Kareem Seville, George Penci, and Steve-O. But not the one you're thinking from Jackass. Another one. Now his Marathon clothing store, it had done some really innovative things as well, including creating a digital smart store. He credits his brother for the idea of starting a clothing store in the first place. Now Nipsey, he dropped off the Mailbox Money mixtape in 2014, and he continued to work on his debut album. Following his format, he sold 60 copies of his mixtape at $1,000 each. That same year, he began a relationship with actress Lauren London. Now although they released a public statement about splitting up, they have since been photographed together many times. They admitted their relationship to the public less than a week ago, appearing in GQ video in which Lauren asked Nipsey 30 questions. Together, the two would welcome a son named Cross, born on August 31st, 2016. He also has a daughter named Imani from a previous relationship. In 2018, he announced a joint partnership with Atlantic to release his label debut, and after 5 years, well, the world finally received Victory Lap, and it didn't disappoint. The album sold over 50,000 copies in its first week, and it landed at the number 4 spot on the Billboard 200 charts. It was also recently nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys, and while it didn't win, the album received critical acclaim, with many rap critics and fans alike calling it the rap album of the year. Now, outside of music, Nipsey, he had made big moves to give back to the community that he came from. His streetwear brand and his store, the Marathon Clothing Smart Store, was opened in 2017, located on Slauson Avenue in the same area he grew up in. Sadly though, it was here on Sunday, March 31st at around 3:25 p.m. that Nipsey Hussle was shot and would later succumb to his wounds after being rushed to the hospital. The world of hip-hop and entertainment took to social media, sharing their grief simultaneously. The impact of this man's music, his philanthropy, and his artistry were heard the world over, and memorials were held all over the Los Angeles area. In the later years, Nipsey Hussle, he had done everything he could to turn his past experiences and newfound notoriety into a means to give back to his community. He would meet with investors and city council figures in order to grow local businesses and inspire new investors to bring businesses into the Crenshaw area. The day before his passing, he was scheduled to meet with the LAPD to discuss methods of preventing gun violence. He'd also been working on multiple documentaries. No cover given behind-the-scenes look into touring, and a documentary on Dr. Sebi, a herbalist and self-proclaimed healer who believed that he had found the cure to AIDS. Now, in a now-chilling tweet, Nipsey posted, "If they kill me for this documentary, y'all better ride." At the time of this recording, law enforcement officials have released a photo of who they believe the culprit is in this heinous crime. Now, we hope this case gets resolved as quickly as possible, and we send our sincere condolences to his friends and family. Now, Nipsey Hussle will not only be remembered as a great artist, but also as an inspiration to those looking to turn their life around for the better. Now, instead of our usual sign-off, we'll let Nipsey close off this video with a message that resonated with us, and we hope it resonates with you as well.
We so logical, and we so driven by logic and so driven by facts that sometimes we can't move without facts. But if you got trust in your gut and you got trust in your instinct, and you learn that as you grow older and you mature, that sometimes you don't need facts. You can just go off your gut and how you feel about things.
Damn.
You know what I mean? So just being confident in, I don't need confirmation. If I feel it, I trust how I feel. I know my intentions is pure. My instincts is like connection to a higher understanding. You don't need the facts all the time. Just go off how you feel. And so I think that I've learned to listen to my gut and my instincts more and be confident in making decisions off of that.